Hey you guys, Witchcrafter Godspan here. Welcome back to the next episode of Custom Card Review. We're on to part 4 of our 2025 foray into the custom card catalogs. And once again, I am by myself today. Scheduling definitely be conflicting, but having said that, little old me should be more than sufficient here to review these cards. And we've got a boatload to go through as always, and I'm really excited to do so, as always. Now, before we begin, if you guys do like this series, definitely give a like and subscribe to the channel. We are just over the 3K mark, and I'm trying to hit the 4K mark 1K at a time, and every little bit helps there. And with all that said, let's go ahead and begin. I hope you enjoy. So beginning with Witchcrafter Vice Madame, which is kind of interesting because witches was also a prominent part of the last episode, and so now we're getting that theme here again, albeit this is a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, as I understand. I actually played Witchcrafters back in the day, so I think I have some things to comment on with these cards, right? So let's go ahead and read. So Witchcrafter Vice Madame, which is probably going to be the big boss unit, right? Grade 4, power 26,000. Triple drive. Oh, one critical. Nation Yu-Gi-Oh. Just obligatory. Like, that's the entire name. I guess that actually kind of makes sense, because if you think about like Buddy Fight collab, then it would have to be Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So continuous, you cannot normal write this card. Thank God. Auto on the Vanguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, cost discard up to any number order cards with Witchcrafter in their name from the order zone or hand into the drop. So English doesn't seem to be like the strong suit here based on the grammatical errors that I'm seeing right now, just basic like actual English errors, not just like hard text grammar. But having said that, I think I can interpret this well enough. Activate all the effects below according to the numbers discarded order into drop zone. So basically the number of cards that you put from order zone and hand into drop, you scale on that for this effect. So if you put 2 or more, drop to 3 cards. Hell no. 4 or more, retire all of your opponent's front row rear cards. Wait, why is this the more expensive effect? Draw 3 cards? And like, what? Okay, that's whack. 6 or more, choose up to 2 order card from drop into hand. Yeah, sure, okay, fine, I guess. Like a recursion effect is like, I mean, there's a couple other here, but like recursion effect here is kind of like whatever, right? 20 or what? The numbers discarded order. Is it grades or something? What am I missing here? 20? Get this unit 85,000 power, 5 critical, and when they would call from hand to guardian circle, they've got to call 3. This is just a PG or GG. You've got to PG this, especially if OT comes down, because it is just automatic death. You cannot survive this attack. Holy crap. At the end of your turn, choose a Witchcrafter Madame Berry from your soul and write it as rest. Oh my god, we are off to a riveting start with this episode. So where do I even begin here, right? For one thing, this is a card which I'm not sure how you're supposed to write into this, so maybe it's convoluted because obviously it can't be normal written. But having said that though, I don't really understand what's going on with this card. So it says order cards with Witchcrafter in the card name from hand or order zone. Now this actually makes sense because the way that the Witchcrafter deck worked was you had the ability to eat up your Witchcrafter spells in order to like get effects, but those spells then had the ability to replace themselves and reset them back on the field. So you kind of had this sort of economic standpoint where you could recur those suckers. So I guess there's a little bit of that here. I see why it's using that as a cost. That's flavorful, but the effects are all over the place. So with just a couple of order cards, you're drawing 3. That's insane. Absolutely bonkers. And then apparently the next step up is just to like wipe out the opponent's front or rear cards and it's just retire. What? Really? And then after that, it's not much more riveting. Just 2 order cards with a drop into the hands, which basically makes it like really simple. So basically, if you could get up to 6, it's basically the same as doing 4. So that's kind of nonsense. But then there's this 20 or more. I don't even know how you get to 20 or more. But then once you do, you have the most ridiculous. This is the only card I've seen in existence say plus 85,000 power, plus 5 critical, so we're armor breaking, and then actually a kind of middling triple battle door. I mean, I actually don't even really care about that at that point, right? But okay, so the cost is absurd and the effect is absurd, but this is a double negative, which does not make a positive. And so yeah, I can't rate this card right now because I don't really understand it. It's a question mark out of 10 for the time being. All right, Madame Berry, this should explain things. So grade 3 power 10,000. Why is it not 13,000? Wait, hold on a second. It never really specified nation, so I actually don't know what era this is supposed to be a part of. Is this supposed to be part of like an older era of Vanguard? In which case this is just even more ridiculous, but I'm gonna assume this is D series, right? In which case, why is it 10,000? As opposed to this crazy stat line, this is just whatever. Now, here's the thing. One thing about this as well is, you know, so this is 20K, and you're like, well, you know, it's fine, right? Because it has to get rid of itself. No, it doesn't, because the way the wording should have went here is it should have stated that it retired itself from the Vanguard circle and then chose a Madame Berry from the Soul to Ride its Rest. Because of that, if you find a way to Soul Blast Madame Berry during like the battle phase here, it has no target, and as such just stays on the Vanguard circle permanently. Okay, so auto on the Vanguard circle when placed, if your opponent's Vanguard's power is 13,000 or more, so this has to be D series because it's assuming that. Soul Blast 2, which I actually kind of like this because this should be live a lot of the time. Soul Blast 2, the opponent gets minus 1,000 power for each different order name in drop in order zone until the end of your opponent's next turn. That's actually kind of a neat hex effect. If you have a ton of different orders there, and the idea is you're kind of playing a Highlander of them, you run into consistency issues, but the payoff of this is a lot better. And because it lingers with them, you can really devastate the opponent. The only issue is that in the majority of cases, this is going to get overridden by literally overriding it, or striding over it if you're a stride deck set matchup, right? So this is a fairly weak effect for Soul Blast 2 because it doesn't have any other additional benefits. Auto on the Vanguard circle, at the end of the battle this unit attacked, you can discard 3 cards from the hand and or discard 2 order cards from hand in the drop zone. You choose a Witchcrafter, grade 3 or greater from your hand, right as stand, and gets drive minus 1 to end a turn. Oh, so it's a multi-attack. So that even makes this more bat-crapping saying than I thought it was originally. That's awesome. That's exactly what I needed to start this off. Act on the Vanguard or Rearguard circle. Put a set order from your dropper hand into the order zone to draw a card. That's actually a good effect. That is undoubtedly a good effect, and I actually do like that effect here because yeah, it's really insane. But so it's like basically a free draw and set. But the thing is that if you're trying to look at this from the context of like what the deck aims to do, which is to eat a lot of these order cards, you do need a basic facilitator Vanguard like that in order to get it going. This is very reminiscent of Nirvana Java, which also allows you the ability to discard a card to call any 2 from the drop zone, because it's assumed you're gonna like immediately subsume them into a cross Overdress, which is normally a neg 2 anyway. So that free +1 effectively is really good countermeasure. The only thing that I have umbrage with is that this is a Rearguard circle effect too. That should not be there at all. That should be a purely Vanguard circle effect, because that gets kind of cracked here. Although then again, it's hard to say because I don't even really know the blueprint in this formula. So yeah, the first skill is kind of out of place and pretty weak. The second skill is okay, I guess. It kind of makes sense. I feel like this is the best skill in the sense that it gives you a baseline of what the archetype is supposed to do. A basic multi-attack, and it uses your orders cards as like optimal fodder. And then the Axia, which is probably actually the best, is a way to facilitate the fodderization of said order cards, but overextends by putting on the Rearguard circle. So yeah, I mean, this is probably like a 3 or 4 out of 10. This is like a 1 out of 10. I do not like this card remotely. Witchcrafter Adele, grade 2, 10,000 power, 5,000 shield. Oh, finally, something normal. When this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 Madame Berry, search your deck for up to 2 order cards reveal, put in the hand. Holy crap. Oh man, Bob's not gonna write like eat your effing heart out, dude. It's got the plussing of Namarkar, but also the search radius of Halibatra, and it is like just free and conditionless. What the frick? You could use the hand. This unit treated as hold on a second, you can't do that, right? Because like, can't you put in the order zone then? I mean, even if you can't, that's just kind of crazy, right? Because now you're kind of like dutying all over the concept that you need to like have the bricky order cards as like optimal fodder, right? If this is already treated at that, then you really undermine like what the order cards value in the deck is. That's a really whack effect. Oh crap. So over the top ride line skill mixed with a continuous skill that just dookies on its own archetype. Oof, okay, I'm sorry, level 102, by the way, if I feel really harsh about this. It's just there's a lot going on here that's not great, right? There's not even just card balance. I think it's also conceptual, right? Like, this is a very boring effect. This effect is not really that great, and this effect overextends, right? Like, just all in function. This in concept is just like all to the wall, and it doesn't feel right for Witchcrafters whatsoever. And this similarly kind of like duties all over what concept you do have going over it. Now Witchcrafter Jenny should be a grade 1, right? Yeah, so grade 1 normal stat. Wait, no, not normal stats. Shield 10,000. What are we doing here? That's a V series thing. When this unit is rolled upon by a grade 2 Witchcrafter Adele, which, by the way, just saying Witchcrafter Adele, you don't really need to specify grade 2, right? Same thing with grade 3 Madame Berry. Look at 10 cards to the top of your deck, reveal up to 2 order cards from them, put in your hand and shuffle to the deck, and that charming continuous effect as well. So this is almost as bad as the other one. It's technically like prone to whiffing by comparison. Now, having said that, I don't think this should have been able to add 2 to the hand. What I would have done is discarded the other so that you need Madame Berry to recur from the drop zone once per turn. That might have been the best way to do that personally. The also, yeah, it's probably the most tame thing we've seen in a while, but like, yeah, it's not that great either. Witchcrafter By Street. So this is grade 0, 50,000. What? So order has a shield value. That's not how this game works. Continuous in the order, like they lack, like, dude, they lack the necessary properties to possess the shield value, because they cannot be called in the first place. That's why they do not have strat lines. You need an effect to call these cards, in which case you overwrite with the necessary functionality as ordained by the card. Oh my god, I'm way too aggressive about this, but holy crap, this is insane. So continues in the order zone. This unit is treated as an order. Wait, this is an order card? This is not an order card? I thought this was an order card. Witchcrafter By Street, by the way, for those who don't know, right? Here, right? Let me show y'all what's up. Witchcrafter By Street. This is what it looks like, right? And so this is this is like your continuous spell card. This is what it was, right? Like, it had the effect that you can send it as a like a substitute to a cost, right? And then during the end phase, if you didn't use the other effect to substitute its cost, it could freely recur itself back to the field. That was the whole point. But here it's like we don't even use order cards. Everything just gets treated as order cards because technically they were spell cards. Like, what? Okay, when it's wrote upon, so it's also supposed to be your starter. Draw a card, even if you went first and put it in the order zone. Great. Because why not just break every fundamental practice that we have in this game? When this card is put in the drop zone from the order zone, draw. Oh my god. We just went 0 for 5. Oh. Level, I'm sorry, this has got to be like a 1 out of 10, maybe a 2 out of 10, just because there's like Madame Berry's act is hinting at something interesting. Holy crap, this is garbage. Oh, I hate to say it that way, I really do, but oh, what? I just don't like it at all, right? I can't fathom it, right? This here comes a card which begins like in the most like sucker punchy kind of way, right? Absurd stats, absurd conditions, right? And like a cost which I can't even understand what it's meant to do, because the huge jump from 6 to 20 is just insane. You can exploit it so your card balance is out of whack, right? And then if that wasn't enough, Madame Berry, a weak skill, a generic skill, a bit of an overpowered skill. It makes writing this way too easy. So this is completely off the table, right? Just this is also off the chain because both of these cards get to be treated as order cards, as does this. So all your order cards are normal units. So what's the point of calling them order cards? What is the point? You could have just said Witchcrafter. You could have just said Witchcrafter. You know what? If you wanted these to be treated as order cards, how about this? How about you give them effects to be placed into the order zone of their own volition, and then you call them from the order zone or use them from the order zone as fodder, like a pseudo retire, but they don't have to be on field, which means they're vulnerable to field control. You could have done that. That might have been a lot more cohesive here. Effing hell, man. Like 1 out of 10, maybe 2 out of 10. Oof, that's rough. Okay, Design Life 4497. you're starting from a great position here considering what I just read, so hopefully this is great. Okay, so here we go. Villainist level 99 Yumiella. Is this from that like Villainous anime that was like around a few years ago or something? That might be where this is from. Anyway, so it's a grade 3 Keter Sanctuary with the basic stat lines. It's a common, which is kind of insulting for her, but so be it. Basic abilities as well. Okay, so act in the Vanguard circle once per turn. Put a card from your hand into your soul. Choose up to 1 grade 3 or less unit from your drop called to rear circle. Choose an order from your drop and either put in your hand or soul. Ooh, okay, so off to a strong start there. This is a lot like Java, right? You get a double drop zone recursion by getting rid of a card in hand. Now this puts it to soul, and you can put an order from either hand or to the soul. So if you're putting it to the soul as well, it means it probably wants to like get a bunch of orders into the soul for some reason, which is not bad because that means that you're basically break evening to like set everything up, which could be a tad on the free side depending on the value you get from this, or it could be just like free enough if you're not getting too much value with her alone. Auto in the Vanguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard in all spaces, probably some weird mishap when typing this all out. Cost. Soul Blast 1 or more order cards with different types. Then apply the following effects based on which order you Soul Blast. If you Soul Blast a normal order, all of your front row units get 5,000 power for each card Soul Blast by this effect until end of turn. So that means if you Soul Blast like 3, hold on a second. No. So I need to understand this. For each Soul Blast by this effect until end of turn. So if I'm understanding this right, there's 2 ways to look at this, but I'm going to understand this as probably the more balanced and probably the more intended way, which is soul blasting normal orders. Each normal order specific soul blast is a 5k to front row. That's my understanding of it. Because if you were to soul blast like 5 and just soul blasting 1 or let it be plus 25,000, that'd be like pretty bonkers, right? But I'm going to understand it as you need to soul blast each like normal order to get each increment of 5k. Blitz order. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards and put on the bottom of their deck. Yeah, that's cool. I actually like that it's a bot deck because that is in theme with Keter Sanctuary, so it actually acknowledges the card pool that it delineates from. Set order. This unit gets drive plus 1 on turn. Honestly, I like this card. That is a basic strong card right there. You get an extra drive, which means that your break even becomes a +1 overall, or a +2 if you add the order to hand. But then you need an order to like be put into the soul by another effect. Now, to my understanding here, this card came alone. Let me see if it. I like this one, standalone Vanguard. Thanks, man. Okay, yeah. So this one, he actually has a text here. Surprised but she didn't make a deck focused around all types of orders. I'm actually kind of surprised by that too. Actually, you make a good point. The deck would be a mix between Estro and Willista, where the orders would go to the soul after being played, and the rear cards just make it easy. Gotcha. Okay, so facilitator, you have facilitator rear guards along with the facilitator Vanguard, so it's massively predicated on consistency, not that much power, and so the orders can also go into the soul of their own volition. This is probably most prominent for the normal orders, so I bet this effect is best if you're trying to get a blitz order in there. That seems like the best way to do it, especially if the set order has an axiom to put it there anyway, because that means that once you use the blitz order, it's kind of like stuck in the drop zone. So unless of course you put in a soul from one of its skills, then there you go. So yeah, kind of nice, right? I also wish, like just like Kedabin down there, I also wish we could see more cards with this, because this is good, right? As me and Noir mentioned in a previous episode, if a custom card makes you intrigued about how to support it and you kinda are fiending for more, it goes to show that it's a good card and it's a good concept, and that's exactly what this is. I give this a 9 out of 10. It's a fantastic standalone boss unit. All right, now let's go ahead and go down to another of Design Lives. Okay, first theory of Nonclair. Oh, interesting. Okay, so he actually had like a Nonclair theory effect. That is kind of interesting to think about, considering that we already know what Nonclair does, which, what a disappointment. What an effing travesty. Not a boring, more like. Active once per turn, you counterblast 1. Choose a 4 Seasons of Cray in your order zone and change its season. Ooh, cooking. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, now the auto doesn't specify where. I'm going to imagine he meant for Vanguard Circle. Soul Blast 2 and discard the top 2 cards of your deck. So we got a mill here, and it's a Soul Blast heavy. So these are definitely traits of Stoicheia. Choose up to 2 units with the same name from your drop and call them to rear circle. Oh, wait, with the same name from the drop. That's an interesting restriction. Then if your season is summer or spring and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, activate all the trigger effects of the cards discarded. Ooh, okay. This is, you know what this is reminiscent of? Pinot Noir, the V-Series Pinot Noir. It also had a skill that when you called Blanc, you could build the top 2 and activate any triggers of the top 2 mills. All right, and it also Soul Blasted 1 to do that. This is a Soul Blast 2, of course, but it also doesn't need a specific unit to call itself in response, so, you know, there's fair is fair, right? Also, it calls up to 2 units the same name for the drop zone. Now, it says up to 2 units, so that is kind of interesting, right? Because that means that at bare minimum, you can't get 1 revive of your choice. You just can't get a companion unless you have a companion in the drop zone. So at first it's gonna be a little hard, but then you could high roll into it, like turbo into it as well. There's different ways to enable the maximum value of that. So yeah, you kind of get like a couple pseudo drives without actually drive checking, which is infinitely more interesting than Nonclair's actual drive +1, Bushy. And you get some extra pressure, it's extra units there. Now, the only thing that's a little iffy about it, right? This is a win attacks the Vanguard, so that means you're getting a potential 5 attacks right off the bat with it, which depending on how aggressive this deck is and how much power lines it has, that could be a little overboard. So I could see where if it was like the first battle and it does the call, that's better for stability. But at the same time, you know, Bushy is no stranger to making a bunch of multi-attack anyway for a lot of decks these days. So this probably is just keeping with the times. Auto at the start of your opponent's battle. Okay, so battle phase or battle? I'm going to say battle phase. Discard a card from your hand, and also the spacing again. Your opponent chooses one of his or her stand rear guards arrested. Oh, by the way, little pro tip about like the grammar on that one. You could just do there, like THEIR. It's not a pronoun thing. It's just that it's easier wording because there is all encompassing anyways. So you don't need to waste the time doing the distinctions, right? If your season is autumn or winter, your opponent chooses 2 rear guards and 1. So, okay, aggression is summer or spring. Defense is autumn or winter. I get it. It's like waxing and waning, right? But your opponent, so discarding a single card in the hand forces them to rest a couple of rear guards. That is a real control skill right there. Now, I feel like resting 2 instead of 1 for a singular discard is a little whack, right? I feel like the way this should have been worded, right, is at the start of your battle phase, of your opponent's battle phase, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, your opponent chooses one of their stand rear guards and rests it, and they may rest it. And if they don't rest it, then maybe you get like a draw on a power up, right? But then it states that if your season is autumn or winter, you may activate this auto ability twice. So the way that works then is that you have to discard for each attempt at this. And so if they keep their unit standing, you get minor power-ups to like be defensive anyway. And that minor power-up stacks, of course, but then you can also discard draw to like kind of hand filter, and that hand filter is nice because it builds up that drop zone, which seems to be your theory, right? Now this one says counterblast 1 to choose the 4 seasons, change the season. Now my memory may be off about this, but I do believe I remember at some point when I was talking about Nonclair theory that someone had a theory effect they posted to me at one point, and they mentioned that there was like this sort of like set order that like roulettes, and it like automatically changes to the 4 seasons in chronological order going from spring, summer, autumn, winter, right? And this one could CB1 to kind of like take that clock a little forward. I think that's how that goes, right? Let me see if there's a companion card for this one. Ah, darn, no companion card, but I'm going to assume that's how you change seasons. If that's the case, then that's pretty cool, right? That is pretty cool to be able to manually change the season just like by using a CB1 for it, which is the most costly part of this card. Honestly, like, this is really creative. I think there are some balancing issues here, of course, but despite the balancing issues, you endeavoring to design this the way you have is infinitely preferable to the way that Busher would actually design this. So you actually get bonus points for the power of retrospect, in my opinion, right? And as a result, I'm going to give this a solid 8.5 here. I'm quite impressed by this. So you're going 2 for 2 on that design live. Very nice. Okay, now next up we've got Next Order 95. Next Order here seems to be starting off with a Rotovisor card. So all right, here's another thing that came in from last time. There was Witches and now there's Rotovisor support, right? How about that? I guess the same brain cells like just kind of like hit up there. Okay, so for the grounds of Rotovisor, grade 3, 13k twin drive, act Vanguard circle, D Legion, D Legion. I mean, I'm not laughing to like mock it. I'm laughing because I knew when this custom card review season started, I knew the #1 mechanic, other than maybe the Vine skill, the #1 mechanic that people would attempt is D-Legion. And honestly, yes, do more of this, people, because D-Legion, the way that Bushiroad did it, sucks eggs with Daikaiser. At least Bravern did something kind of neat with it, but let us innovate D-Legion. Let us make this a real, permanent, pervasive part of the format, because it is so cool, and I'm glad that we actually have something to do with our Vanguards other than Persona Ride hit hard. Anyway, so act for D-Legion with Glanzo Rotovisor. And you guys already know the D-Legion clause as always, so moving on. Act on the Vanguard circle. Once per turn, you can cost rest 2 arenas from your order zone. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal up to 2 cards from among them, put all arena into the order zone as rest, and call a unit cards to rear circle as rest. Ooh, okay. So it is a double plus for effectively free, but you have to rest your arenas, right? Now, let's go ahead and go over here a little bit, right? Because if you type up arena, right, and you go over to the main arena card, so this is Nova Grapple Arena Urban City. It has the effect to rest itself in order to give one of your units an on hit to countercharge your energy charge too, right? So this is really clever, right? Because it means that yes, technically it's effectively costless, but on the back end, it means that you won't be able to easily refund your other costs, which means vicariously speaking, it did have a cost, right? But it's sort of Schrodinger's cost, because there's no telling if the opponent would have let you hit anyway. So as a setup card, this is actually like a little interesting, because that means that on one end, your opponent is more likely to let you hit, because in the early game, they actually have like damage to give. So you may be missing out, but it also means that if you're just calling cards and like getting set up with it, it's probably the better time to do it, because you're trying to build up resources for better push plays, especially if you haven't Legioned yet. But by the way, this doesn't require D-Legion at all, so you could do this even if you're riding going first, right? Which is nice. I'm glad that this D-Legion at least has something to do before you go into your bigger pushes, right, Daikaiser? Well, I mean, technically Daikaiser's EV3 is whatever, but like, it's so weak because it can't be boosted when you do it. It's lame. Out on the Vanguard circle, at the beginning of your battle phase, you can Soul Blast one. Choose the same number of your rear guards as the number of arenas in your order zone. Stand them, an energy charge for each stand rear guards. Okay. Okay, so you're standing the rear guards, and then if 3 or more rear guards were stand by this effect, this unit gets critical +1 until end of turn. So, okay, now let's go ahead and go over a little bit to the main Vanguard, which is Glanzal Rotovisor. Now, Glanzal has the effect that if you have 3 or more arenas, all of your front row units get 5,000 power. This is a scaling effect which can be turboed into at a point, but it is just a mandatory scaling effect basically, because you don't hit like anything if you don't. Now, this thing also has the effect that when at the end of battle they attack, you can CB2 to draw, and then you can stand up any number of your Rotovisor rear guards equivalent to the amount of the arenas. And if you stood 3 or more, which means once again you need 3 arenas to get there, all the chosen rear guards will get 5,000 power. So it kind of feels like the Ishtar Amaruta like play pattern, especially if you play V Revival. It's just like how Amaruta feels like. So this is giving like energy charge, and the energy blast is kind of nifty, right? For that particular effect, because you can eat energy for a couple of different cards. So getting the energy charge means that you have better access to cards like Compassionate Mechanic. Compassionate Mechanic and Energy Blast 3 in order to get you draw more power. So that's a nifty card that you can use this with. You also have Energy Blast with the effect of Nova Grapple Arena Permafrost. Now Permafrost is another one, right? Now Permafrost has the ability to rest itself in order to choose a unit that attacked, and it gets an on hit to Energy Blast doing draw a card, which means that let's say that you rested a couple but you kept Permafrost active. Now you can basically make this a free draw, right? Which is an interesting combo for an on hit, but again, you have to make those choices of what you can rest and how much you want to rest. Another Energy Blast here is, I refuse to pronounce that, but it also EBs 2 in order to get shield, which is a weird cost, but if you can energy charge reliably, this is better. You have Ketisage and Vakte. Now you Energy Blast 2 and rest in arena into call to rear circle for the drop. Now resting again is a really interesting cost, so now there's a lot of confliction here, but it does give you a more streamlined way of playing, and you can use these at your own peril, which is nice. So I like this so far. And again, at the beginning of your battle phases, when you stand these up, if you notice, not a lot of these cards are actually soul blasting. right? A lot of these cards do not Soul Blast. They Energy Blast and Counter Blast. So using a Soul Blast for something that's relatively minor is fine. Now, it getting the critical is kind of neat because a D-Legioned is 26k at base, and then all of your front row units going to get 5,000, which double stacks because of Glonzel. So it's a 31k with a critical, which still means that you can 2 to pass it with like 215s, assuming that you're not boosting with an AK. That is really decent pressure. It's a really powerful Legion play. You get boatloads of power there, so I'm pretty impressed by this. This alone, I would say, is like a 9.5. I think it's amazing. Now, he actually makes the Rotovisors that they're too slow. They don't plus enough in all their draw powers during the battle phase. Their 3 reader requirement is set behind either turn 4 or playing Elric when the opponent's at least grade 3. This is the turbo card I was talking about before. Now, Vortigern is supposed to help by either getting you the extra arenas or more rear guards, but they have to be in rest. The energy charge is because they have so much energy uses that hitting with Urban City won't cut it, especially when most of the cost is 3 energy, while Urban City just gives you 2 in hits, which makes sense. So you're kind of like falling behind there. They create some extra pressure, thus forces the opponent to let the rear guards hit, thus triggering their on hits. That's really clever. He makes a good point there. Standing rear guards at the beginning can also trigger Trabant to restand the arenas and power the front rows. But Trabant doesn't have once per turn. Use it again. Wait, Trabant? Hold on a second. It's actually something that I didn't. Let me look for Trabant real quick. This guy, okay. Trabant. So Energy Blast 2 chooses your Vanguards, and it gets the original cost is reduced by Counter Blast 1. Okay. When it's stand by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Rotovisor, Soul Blast 1, you stand up arenas, stand them. You stand 3 or more arenas, Counter Blast all your formaries. Ooh, okay. That's cooking. That's cooking. Okay. Okay. Now, this is even more powerful than I thought, right? I'm going to give this like a 9.5 now, right? Like this flows so much. Like he's even teaching me stuff that I wouldn't even imagine about this. This is synergizing in so many myriad of ways. Like talk about a card that just fixes your archetype. It may be just a tad on the powerful side when you include like the Trabant implications, but at the same time, I also like the Trabant implications. So 9.5. I may be a weenie by not giving it a 10, but something is giving me a little bit of pause that maybe it's still a little too easy on your resources to do this because of your other compensations. So I feel like there should have been at least a little bit extra cost or restriction behind there to stop that. I think one thing that actually like might get me is depending on the amount of like stand cards, right? Because you can get a couple of stand cards there. If you get into the rest card, you can get a critical even against a grade 2, which may be a little too powerful. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. But yeah, it's like I can't unabashedly say it's a 10 out of 10, but it's really effing close. Now Spy Rotovisor gets act on the rear guard circle once per turn. It seems to be just regular 10k base grade 2. Energy Blast 3 and rest 2 rear guards and rest in arena your orders on the draw card. Yeah, okay, so this is a Street Bouncer, but as an axe skill, which is infinitely better. Those who don't know, Street Bouncer, when placed, rest 2 of your rear guards and draw a card. So this is also doing that while resting an extra arena in order to draw a card. You get Energy Blast 3 in order to do that, but the upside is that it's an axe skill, which means as long as it stays on the field, you can keep having this benefit. So, okay. That's pretty powerful. So this is another thing. So this will give you a huge plussing engine because of the Soul Blast skill that's also present. So Soul Blast will more or less like compensate for this, but again, the key is that you got to get those arenas out there. This will make it really easy to get your third arena if you see it off the top 7, but because of the timing, you also have to see it on that top 7 after already having filtered some out, so it's a little debatable you can get it. So you see where this is a little hard for me to measure, right? But it's pretty good. I honestly think you kind of have gold with just that effect alone, but it's got a second one. Out on the rear circle, in this unit, stand by your card ability. If you got a Rotovisor, choose your rear guards, and that unit in this unit gets 5,000 power in a turn. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. Considering how nice this effect is, I feel like this is a little bit too much. Like I get that D series card design is like really hefty in that you're getting like a ton of like rear guards doing 2 to 3 even effects, which is like already like the Vanguards basically always do 3 effects these days, it feels like. So I know it's kind of keeping with the flow of power creep, but again, I think this on its own with the current formula is already absolutely giga insane. But maybe you're trying to put this second skill here because you're trying to compete with things like the other grade 2s in this deck. So I think the thing that this is going to do is it's going to kick Compassionate Mechanic to the curb, because Compassionate Mechanic is a draw, and then you give 5,000 power to another unit, and also has a unit on this self, right? But you've kicked it to the curb because you're sort of power creeping Compassionate Mechanic. But you see, it's already getting a lot of power from Trabin anyway, and we do have Compassionate Mechanic, so I actually don't know if I like that. Like, it's a main phase plus, but I feel like needing to get like your cards set up in the main phase, especially considering that you already get a double setup potentially from like this Vortigern, you probably are overcompensating with this one personally. So I'd rate this lower because it's power creeping something that is already a good part of the deck, and you already have another thing doing its main purpose. Rotovisor, you get auto when placed in the rear circle. You got an arena and a Vanguard with Rotovisor. Rest this unit. Draw a card. At the beginning of your battle phase, rest an arena and send this unit. That's too much. Just resting it in order to draw is not enough because you're standing it up anyway. It's a free draw. So again, you had it perfect with the Vanguard. The other two are just overcompensating at this point. Auto in the rear circle. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted to Rotovisor. If you have an arena, put this unit soul and countercharge one. Ooh, I mean, okay, another rear guard and an arena rester. And since B heroes of Ace get their own Bulb Mine, I thought, why not give one for Rotovisors too? So yeah, okay. Yeah, like, I guess considering how Brancate is built anyway, sure, this is probably a fine effect anyway. But if that's the case, I feel like this effect is just too much. Like, if anything, I feel like just actually make this an make this a true blue Bulbamine replacement, right? If it just says you have an arena, it puts in the soul and countercharges one at the end of the battle that it boosts a Rotovisor. And so you can give it like a basic secondary skill that's, I don't know, maybe like rested to give another unit like an extra little bit of power. So like, again, you can maximize your restance as effectively as possible, but definitely not a free +1, right? Like that seems a little whack to me. So yeah, that would, I think these two are kind of like more on like the 6 or 7, like functionally in a vacuum, they're pretty good, albeit very powerful, but they're overkill because of Vortigern. Now we've got, he's actually got more for me. So I decided to add some of my old deleter and counter ideas, but upgrade to match the current level of power, which I don't know what the current level of power is by your estimations, because these are a little bit over the top in retrospect, but you know, maybe they're okay. So docking deleter gray on. Now act on the Vanguard circle, counterblast 2, and delete all of your opponent's Vanguard. Yeah, sounds about right. Give it like some mitigator cards, and yeah, that's perfectly fine to CB2 in order to delete. Deleters have historically always been rather expensive to delete for the most part, and thus it has been the biggest counterplay in deleters to get damage denied, which is healthy counterplay because it can aggro all over the place and also deny a lot of the valuable ride effects, right? And stride effects by process. So that's good. Now, auto on the Vanguard circle. When your opponent's Vanguard is deleted, perform all the following according to the number of delete end cards in your order zone. Oh, wow, okay. 2 or more. Rest any number delete end in your order zone and countercharge 1 for each card rested for the cost of this effect. That's absolutely whack, because that means that means that if you get 2 of these, you have a free delete every turn. That's not okay. I get you need to have the 2 face-up CB in the first play, but I mean, I have to take back any amount of praise I gave this simple and sublime axe skill because of this, right? This spits on that notion at all. 3 or more. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets continuous. All your front row units get 5,000 for every 2 docking delete orders in your order zone. Yeah, but delete is a really powerful effect anyway. It's like you're like doing Dragil stuff anyway, so I guess you're just trying to compete with Dragil by giving 5k to the front row. Like, this is probably okay, right? Like, I actually don't mind this effect because not only do you need 3 or more, which could be hard depending on how your ride line plays, but also it requires the opponent to be grade 3 or greater anyway, so it's a little bit of stopgap. And so if you were to just eliminate this effect and just have this scaling effect, like, so like for instance, right, if it had an act to just counterblast and then you just tacked on this like continuous as an entirely separate skill to it and took out this, I think this would be a really sublime encounter card, right? I dig it. Docking delete. So grade 1 set order delete end. Play this so you have a deleter Vanguard, which could be a lot of them depending on how far this gets supported. Order zone. When a card is placed on your opponent's grade 3 or greater deleted Vanguard, rest 2 delete end. Choose up to 2 deleter from your drop zone sentinel ability and put in your hand. That's not okay remotely. I mean, I get it. What you're trying to say say is that you can, so if you have 3, you rest 1, make this a counterblast 1, and then you rest 2 to get like a double plus, which is like, that's giga bonkers, because remember, this is a grade 1 set order, so you can get 3 of these by the time you ride to grade 3. So that has like no balance to it, right? It doesn't even get rid of itself. I think I would have understood it more if it got rid of itself, like if it like either retired itself or if it put itself into soul, even if you want to take it that far in your resource economy. But it just rests itself in order to get like free recursions. So that can include Persona Ride, it can include any like pieces like F playing a control deck against this for one thing, because you'll just keep recurring them, right? So Jesus. Now on the order zone, at the beginning of your opponent's main phase, they have a deleted Vanguard. Your opponent may discard a card from their hand. If they discard it, your opponent chooses one of their Vanguard's original abilities, and their deleted Vanguard gets that ability to end a turn. That is an interesting upside. So basically what you've done here is you've given the opponent an out to delete if they're willing to discard. This is kind of funny because traditionally in the game, right? Traditionally what you would do is you would give you would slap on like Docking Leader Oxus, right? Which of course we're talking about Grion here, but like I'm thinking about I think his name was Docking Leader Oxus, right? It was something Oxus. Now Oxus had the ability to force your opponent to discard in order to ride over deleted Vanguard, right? It gave him that ability. This one lets you discard or to gain an ability back, so you can't get your complete Vanguard, and you also don't get the power back, although you do get to keep Twin Drive by rules, right? You can't get the Twin, you can still Twin Drive, and you get one of their abilities. It's kind of an interesting compromise. I actually don't mind that effect, right? So they can give up a card or to get something back at least, but it does mean that if your opponent does have a ride, which presumably they would have a ride, you just get cucked out, right? You don't at least tax them on that ride. So in a way, it's more interesting, but it's probably also the weaker of the two effects. It's very gracious to the opponent in the overall exchange. Now, Slip Deleter Gaily. Auto on the Vanguard Circle, so right line skill. At the end of the battle, this unit attack, retire, rearguard, search your deck, hand, or drop for up to 1 delete, and put in your order zone and shuffle the deck. Okay, so a little belated compared to what normally you would see, but still gets the point across, right? Now, it does actually require you to neg 1 in order to get the delete end card, so that's kind of interesting because most of the time when you see these Bracket right lines, they just say on place on Vanguard Circle, add the subtype card that you want. The subtype order card, I should say. Affirmative Deleter Gayan. So it has a Vanguard Circle skill. When it's placed by riding upon a grade 0 deleter, search your deck for docking delete and add it to your hand. You see, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like that's usually how both the grade 1 and the grade 2 goes. It has a second skill though, surprisingly, unlike Gaily for whatever reason. Continues on the Guardian Circle. If you got a deleter, this unit gets 5,000 shield, but then if a card was placed on a deleted grade 3 greater Vanguard this turn, it gets shield plus 10,000. Oh, interesting. So your card's power, that's ironic, right? Usually deleters power up if the opponent has a deleted Vanguard, but this is more sensible because usually it's better to like have an effect for if they like had ridden over, because even though it doesn't feel right thematically for the most part, you could spin it, I guess. Functionally, this is fantastic because it's better to have it for your worst case scenario, especially for something defensive like shield value, rather than just make a winning game state win harder. That's just beating a dead horse at that point. So that's good. Sprout Deleter Lucci, that's just the starter, makes sense. Lie down Deleter Given. Oh God, Given. This has always been the dangerous one. Out on the rear circle, the amount of this unit attacked a grade 3 or greater Vanguard cost, put 5 cards from rear circle or hand in the drop and stand all of your Vanguards and increase or decrease its critical to 1 inch on a turn. So it would be like 5 cards among rather than just like 5 of either zone, I would imagine. So standing in order to do that, one thing that's like kind of trippy about this is that this is not so this is only down to if you attacked with Given, right? It doesn't say other cards. So here's how I would do it, right? Personally, in order to make like, because you get to keep the Twin Drive. Because you get the Twin Drive still, I would swing with Given. I would eat up the Given that just swung along with 3 at the back row rear cards, along with 1 card in the hand as well. Stand up my my Grayon, swing with it again, get another 2 drive checks. So I ultimately did go neg 3, but I'm attacking a deleted Vanguard and beating it to hell and back. Then after that attack, I would attack with a second Given on the other front or rear circle. And remember, this is easy to formulate because you got delete ends to record them back for you. Then from that, I get rid of the final Given from the rear circle and 4 cards from the hand and stand to begin of the Twin Drive. And again, this is another whole Twin Drive. You play draw triggers with this and you get maximum value out of that attack pattern, right? You wouldn't want to play fronts in this attack pattern. You want to play draws here. That is absolutely crazy. the only thing it does is make sure that you can't crit the opponent like continuously and like stack crits, but it does mean any drive check could still crit your opponent to 2 or more if you hit 2 like criticals, right? This is absolutely insane. Like, it's the only effect it's had, but it's pretty like off its rocker. I don't think we need this much offensive power creep, considering that delete in of itself is already like a gradual effect, so that's crazy. Hailing the leader, although I will say this is exactly what the leader did, like Given did in the old days, so like, go figure. Now, Alba, when placed on your right front row rear, oh, it's the charming condition of the V series. Now, you don't have a rear guard named Elro. You can Soul Blast to revive an Elro. Sure. Although I don't think you really need it, because if you actually look at like your Vanguard here, you're not even like retiring your deleters. So this is incongruent, because generally speaking, these self-reviving deleters are supposed to be facilitators for deleters that also eat your own rear guards in order to activate their effects. So this feels like out of place. Now, although it does make sense because this is what V series did. So in the vacuum, it makes sense, but in the blueprint of the deck again, right? Which seems to be a common theme with this guy's cards right now. When your other rear card is put in the drop zone by a card's ability, if you have a deleter, you Energy Blast 2, put that card in your hand. Then if your opponent has a deleted Vanguard, Counter Blast 1, choose a card from your hand. And, okay, so you stop right there. This effect is already probably fine on its own. It's a Shura effect, basically, without any power, but it also means that like you can EB2 on like any card ability. This can include when your card is like attacked by battle, and you can protect it. It doesn't need to be in a back row rear circle in order to do it. Remember, in order to get like Alba's effect initially, you only need to call it to the right front row circle. There's nothing stopping you from moving it to the back row, like right rear circle after that. Confusing, I know, but there's nothing stopping you for that. So this is already really impressive. Then on top of that, you have a deleted Vanguard skill to multi-attack further. That's really weird. Also, it's put in the drop zone by card ability, so the way you're trying to do this is, I guess you're trying to multi-attack from the skill of Given. I think that's the point, is to do it with Given. Which means that this is going the opposite direction of what I want, because rather than trying to like minimize the impact of Given, because Given is honestly super cost efficient for what it provides you, your opponent is dying on this. This actually like expands on Given more, so this is getting into really dangerous territory. Now, Hailing Deleter Elro, which is the partner to Alba, is when placed on your left front row rear circle. If you have a deleter and you do not have an Alba, you can Soul Blast one to call an Alba from the drop zone, so mirrored effects. Then it has an auto on specifically the left front row rear circle, so okay, that's a good sign. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you've got a deleter, you can give it 5,000 power, but if you do, you retire all of your rear guards in the same column as this unit and draw a card. Now, that is a better effect. Now, I feel like though it should have said that if you retire 2 or more cards, you draw a card, because that way you're at least forced to fully commit the column in order to get your good value, right? Like even something as recent as a set 5 card for Undercover, which was like Janix. Janix like absorbed both itself and the booster into the soul in order to draw a card, right? Now Janix required you to do that, but it didn't actually require you as part of the cost to absorb the booster. It just puts the column into soul. What that means is that you can dodge it with Tigris, but Tigris actually has an EB skill to it. So if you use Tigris and then also Janix's EB3 to countercharge, that is effectively a way to break even and bounce back a card, but you need an EB5 for it. So it's pretty fair. This is a lot more laissez-faire by comparison. You have a lot of ways to just work with this, and it's not that bad. Technically speaking though, it does retire all of your units in the same column. So in theory, you're kind of getting some of that with Alba, but it's not the same because it's not as restrictive. So it's really easy resources with deleters, which I don't like. I feel like it is good for deleters to be very aggressive with some amount of control, but like it needs to be hard, otherwise you have a problem on your hands. Now, Ill-Fate Deleter Drown. When it's placed on the rear circle, you can counterblast one to retire a rear guard, and you also search for a delete end card and put in your hand. At least it puts it to the hand, but still, this more or less guarantees your third delete end, so that's a problem. Then when it's put in the drop zone from hand or rear circle by your card's ability, if you've got a deleter, you put it in your soul, so It makes Soul like not as impactful of a cost, so Elro and Alba are more easy. And again, remember, this is all solely by the fact that you're able to recur these with Docking Delete. I think if Docking Delete didn't recur these, especially not as easily and as plentifully, a lot of this would actually would have been a much better base, because then you start to feel the impact of it. But Docking Delete just kind of like deflates everything in general. And the fact that Docking Delete is also a source of counter charge is just like really whack. So overall, I would give these about like a 6.5 out of 10. A lot of the functionality is pretty nice, and I definitely get the point of what you're going for here, but in some ways you're a little too faithful, and in other ways you went a little avant-garde. And definitely this is a quite power creepy and doesn't completely really mesh with the way that Deleters was meant to be played, right? It was meant to be a high cost, high power kind of deck, but this one is more focused on having that high cost, but also so many ways to mitigate it. It kind of reminds me of something that my friend David mentioned before about like standard, which is that a lot of standard players feel the need to get more cost mitigation, and that is bad card design. We need cost to actually feel like cost, because that is a way to limit the ability to play things without needing to put in like hard restrictions, which is just sloppy, right? So this is the same basic thing here, right? We make this so easy that now it's like the only thing that stops these things is whatever like effect conditions they may have. That's kind of whack to me. So yeah, overall 6.5. It was an admirable effort, but I have some umbrage with this, right? So it's decent overall, I'd say. All right, and ooh, Killer Cobra. How many cards do we have on this? We've got, ooh, we got a lot of cards here for sure. Oh, do I want to get over? Let me see. So how many cards have we gotten through today? We got through a lot of next orders next orders cards, Design Lives cards, and then also we went to the Witchcrafters. So you know what? I think what I'm gonna do here is I am going to read these suckers, and then that's going to be the end of it for the day. So let me go ahead and read these. I will make DP customs until the day I die. Wow. Okay. Well, putting it in no uncertain terms how committed you are to this, it seems like they're going to be Zeals. So the first time you covered my customs was on a Zeal variant, so with encounters showing no sign of stopping, I figured I'd take another swing at adapting with the very first units I saw in Vanguard. A concept so cool that it got me into the game in the first, like, oh yeah, that's cool. I think you mentioned the first time as well. It's nice to see that. All right, Viper Cobra, let's see what we got here. So Larva Beast is the typical D starter, followed by Eye of Destruction Seal, obviously. Now, when it's placed on the Vanguard circle, search your hand or deck for up to one the new era, put in the order zone, and if you search the deck, and if you put from hand, so you shuffle the deck if you search from the deck, otherwise you put from hand. So as a result, that's pretty good here. Basic like Brandgate Ride Line skill. Now auto once per turn. Let me go ahead and actually put this over here. You know what? I should do that for all of these. What am I doing here? Sometimes I get so enraptured at looking at these that I like forget that I should do this for the benefit of everyone's like viewership, including my own. All right, so let's go ahead and have these start loading up. Now, auto once per turn. When this card is put into the order zone by your card's ability, you can Soul Blast one to choose a unit with monster or Zeal from the hand or drop and put in the order zone. Ooh, okay. That's interesting. So it's a like offshoot support card for Archetype. That's kind of neat. Now you're playing the new era. Now, depending on how many of the new era you need in your order zone, you could actually run a monster engine in this deck, theoretically speaking, right? That is kind of an interesting implication. I'm wondering how far he expands on this. Having said that, though, I'm taking a look here, and Zeal was an alien. He maintained that, which is good for remaining candid and faithful to the original, but it also means that it doesn't have the true like monster idea. Now, monster is actually a card name, but it also means that there's no like typing thing that you're gonna really do with it as well, unless you start searching aliens. And aliens are also monsters vicariously most of the time. So well, the other way around, like monsters tend to be aliens, so they're kind of alien support without saying they're alien support. So you could have done that. He didn't do that here, so this is interesting. The court's out on like how good that effect is, but basically Soul Blast to get a unit card from the hand or drop and put in the order zone. That's the way it works. Now, the new era. Oh, I forget. I think this is a scene in which Joan fights Aichi, right? It could be wrong though. Now you can only have the one new era in a deck, so it's okay. So you made this the way that the Moon Gate was designed. Gotcha. So that answers that question clearly. Order Zone. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 1 or greater, you can rest this card to energy charge 1. Okay, that's an interesting way of making things more fair, because that means that you can't ramp if you go first on energy, which kind of keeps it the balance of how energy was designed, where it's the going second player that gets energy. I don't know if you necessarily need that, but it is a fair and prudent choice. Choose up to 1 unit card with monster Zeal from your hand or drop and put in your Order Zone. Okay, so this operates very much exactly like the Dayusha base cards, which makes sense because Zeal's sort of like a counterpart. He's the villain in the D-Robo side of things, so having that same baseline effect is totally fine with me. It doesn't seem to have a special type on this order card though, so I guess he didn't really feel the need for it. It'd be kind of funny if it was a base card, but I don't think they would go that far. Now, active the Order Zone, you can Energy Blast 2 to choose a monster Zeal from your Order Zone called Circle. Okay. So yeah, this is really like the D-Robo stuff again. Now, I actually kind of like this a little bit more, because even though putting into soul and then using that soul to call is definitely very resource intensive, this is just more straight to the point. It cuts out the middleman. Putting cards into Order Zone is a brand gate thing. More specifically, it is a monster sub-archetype thing, and this does that. But then on top of that, by putting in the Order Zone and then calling them from the Order Zone, you get a lot of monster synergy, and it just makes sense, right? They're kind of like stockpiled in the background. I guess this is sort of like the new era here is just a representation of like the fleet of monsters with Zeal as the criminal mastermind in the universe, right? Like he's at the helm of this like growing army syndicate in the background, and this is where they like propagate from, so that makes sense. Now, auto in the Order Zone, 1 final effect, maybe a little overextending with the final effect, but considering Kant is just a basic restriction, I don't know. At the end of your turn, choose up to 1 of your set order rest set orders, stand it, and put all of your rest set order unit cards into the drop. Wait, what? So put all of your rest set order unit cards in. So, oh, hold on a second. So if you rest a unit card in the Order Zone, it has to like go down there, because these aren't unit cards. Counterblast 1, choose 1 unit card without Sentinel from among them. Putting your drop this way and putting your hold up a second. Now, it doesn't put it into your Order Zone as rest. So rest set order unit cards. What is that? This is not. I don't understand that effect. It is meant to be a recursion skill, but it expunges everything else, so you can't ramp like ad infinitum, which is probably a good safety net. All things considered, there was a way to ramp to things, because you could like scale out of control without like committing at all. But that's so weird, right? Because like I don't get that restriction at all. So, okay, the new era, I'm going to give it like an 8.5 out of 10. It's derivative of the base card, but in like a positive way, with like a slight difference that just feels thematically in tune with the sub-archetypes that it's trying to support. The thing that gets me about this though is this final like auto order like zone effect just kind of comes out of effing nowhere and doesn't really make sense, like even in its wording, right? So that's what detracts it for me. Now we're back onto the ride line. So here we have Devour Planet Zeal. Now when it's rolled upon by a grade 3 Zeal, you put this into the Order Zone and then choose up to 1 unit card monster Zeal from your Order Zone and call it to rear circle. Okay, so you could swap out any of the monsters that you've accrued, including Zeals themselves, for him. But either way, it's a plus via a Soul Blast, but it's a Vicarious Soul Blast, because it doesn't say it's a Soul Blast, but you have to rip this from Soul in order to do it. So it is a Soul Blast effectively. That's a clever ride line skill. It's a nice plus. Now when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if that unit's power is less than its original power, this gets 5,000 power. Okay, basic Zeal conditions, because Zeal reduces the power of your opponent's Vanguard. That's what it always did. Good stuff. Nice, right? I don't think this is a very useful card, but considering the fact that a part of its effect is predicated on calling yourself to the rear circle, like Die Dragon, right? Or I guess Kaiser. This is fine. This seems actually like a prudent place to give a secondary skill to a ride line like unit like Devour Planet Zeal. Very well done. Very basically perfect. Now, the big Kahuna himself. This is Galactic Beast Zeal in the original art. Okay, Brant Gate, Alien, Dimension Police as well, so it's a 1 clanner. Twin Drive, Persona Ride, 13k base, all the basic stats. I also appreciate that it's actually a triple rare, as it should be. From before time, the beast will claim ownership of its rightful home. I wonder if that was the original flavor text of Zeal or not. Someone let me know in the comment section below. Active the Vanguard circle once per turn. If you have a new arrow in your Order Zone, good restriction. Counterblast 1 and rest any number of your set orders. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and it gets minus 5,000 power for each unit rest for the cost of this unit's ability until end of turn. Okay, so the more you ramp up to here, the better that you get a power down. Now, what's interesting about this is I probably shouldn't have exited out of these preemptively like that. This rests itself in order to like energy charge and get stuff in the Order Zone. but it doesn't rest itself in order to do the EB2 skill, which means that the EC1 skill could be kind of devastating for you because it reduces the amount of the like rest fodder you have, which means you can't do as much. Now, this can do it for any grade of the opponent's Vanguard, so that means that gets to grade 2 if you have like 3 of these suckers because, well, no, hold on a second. New era can only have 1 in the deck. What am I thinking? You can only have 1. So that means that you rest any number of your set orders, but yeah, so new era needs to be there, but you can rest any set order, so that's how it is. So that means, yeah, you're encouraged to run torrential energy, right? I think that's the way this works, right, guys? You want to run the torrential energy research order as extra rest fodder here because that thing will rest itself for other skills, but it's not as mandatory, and the new era is already getting you cards. It's building up EB. So basically, you EC1, get a card there, and then ultimately it's in EB1 because you could do both in the same turn, so it's a little bit superior to the base, and they can't ramp as easily because it can't pull for the deck. That's the downside to it compared to the base. And you call it to the field. Wow, there's a lot of variables going on here, but this seems pretty cool to me, and it is definitely an interesting allocation of effects here. Now, auto on the Vanguard circle also once per turn. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, you apply all the following according to the number of your rest set order unit cards. Set order unit cards again. Wait, hold on a second. It says resting number of your set orders, but this is set order unit cards. So wait, are you supposed to rest the unit cards as well? Maybe he misworded this or whatever, but I think he might be trying to, rather than call them. So if you call them, it's a plus. Oh, hold on a second. So if you can rest your set units, then this completely like breaks the system, right? Because all you basically get to have everything. You have your cake and eat it too, right? So you energy charge 1, put it there, and then you rest it with Zeal, and then afterwards you EB2, which is basically just energy blast 1 in order to call it. And because you can just call it without it being rest, that means that as the rest in order zone becomes stand as a call, right? Because by default you call as stand. Ooh, that may not be good. That may be a little bit too much, but if it is actually just set orders, then I still don't quite understand how you're supposed to rest the units in your order zone. So it's either not working or it's working too well. So we're in a little bit of a bad dichotomy there. Now you apply for free all the following effects based on the number of your set order unit cards that are rest. You draw a card if it's 2 or more. Okay. You stand one of your unit cards with monster Zeal. Wait, choose one of your stand unit cards of monster Zeal in your order zone and call to rear circle. Oh, okay, so that's a multi-attack, but it's not a restand, so that means you can't stack power buffs on it. But still, this is a multi-attack in a deck that could be getting rid of a lot of power from your opponent, so that's really impactful. So that's okay, although now we're getting a little bit too much considering it's free anyway. So, I mean, yeah, you CB and rest anyway, but I probably would have preferred like a Soul Blast cost to the secondary skill at least to kind of round out what your costs are. Now, 4 or more. Until the end of that battle, when your opponent would call cards from your hand of Guardian, you must call 3 or more at the same time. Ooh. I mean, that's probably a turn 4 play because of how like the set orders work here, but still, that's a little bit too much on the battle door. I feel like a battle door 2, considering you're already getting a multi-attack, a draw, and you're beating like the crap out of them because they're like lower base power, that's enough for Zeal, especially because this is also cost effective. So we're going a little too high on the card balance aspect, but thematically speaking, it makes sense, right? Zeal is supposed to bully a small Vanguard, and also it has like it does the V Series 1 was a little bit more prone on this, but it does have basic like recruitment skills, but also the V Series 1 had like abilities to put themselves in the soul. So in this case, you are ramping, but instead of ramping to soul as a ride line would normally, we are going against the customary and going over to the order zone because this is the new era, right? This is Brand Game, which is more order zone based. So it holds a lot of the same basic themes. I think it overextends, and depending on how New Era and Galactic Beast interact with each other, it's either like way out of line or it doesn't really function as well as I think it would. Maybe the last couple support cards help really complete this though. So now we have Assault Monster Gunrock. Now, continues in the rear guard or guardian circle. If you got a New Era in your order zone, gets 5,000 power and shield. Perfect. Auto on the rear circle once per turn. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you got a grade 3 or greater Zeal, this unit's critical is 1 or less, and the unit being attacked has power less than its original power. You Soul Blast 1, and it gets a critical, and at the end of output, this is your order zone is that's a rest order zone. Okay. That's a nice effect right there. That is a good effect. Now, the only thing I'll say about this effect is it shouldn't get a critical against a grade 2 Vanguard. If that was grade 3 or greater locked, this is perfect. It's a Soul Blast to get a big crit like that, and it can like is really good even if you can't, if even it has the Zamoog restriction where you can't like make it triple critical via a critical trigger. That is a really good effect. And moving over into the Order Zone as rest is good because now you actually can stand it and keep it there, right? And then, or if you don't stand it and keep it there, you can CB1 in order to add it to the hand, right? So okay, not bad, right? And again, let me review. So choose up to one of your set order unit cards to stand and put all of your set order unit cards that are rest into the drop CP. Choose up to one unit card that's Sentinel from among the cards to put in the drop this way and put in your hand. Yeah, so I'm not misunderstanding that. That's a cool synergy effect. That's a really nice way of playing into it. It's fresh, it's innovative, and it feels in theme. Perfect on Gunrock there. The only thing it needs to be truly perfect is just make it grade 3 or greater restricted for your opponent. Now, out on the rear circle, this is Evolution Monster Devane, which was a Zeal Rider back in the day. When this unit is placed on the rear circle from the hand specifically, you have a grade 3 or greater Zeal. Look at the top 7 cards of the deck, choose up to one monster or Zeal, and put in your Order Zone and shuffle the deck. Okay, this is almost perfect. I think the only thing that, I guess it doesn't technically need this, but it's prudent to do this. You should like request that it has the new era in there, as a lot of like your balancing mechanics are based on that. So the new era and a grade 3 or greater Zeal. So that way you're not kind of like gerrymandering by doing the, because if you're doing like the ride line, right, like I guess in theory like you shouldn't have to worry about this, but it's probably nice to have it. But I guess I'm just being nitpicky, right? It's a fine skill. I'm just happy it says from hand, so it can't be exploited from the superior call effect of Galactic Beast. Now, auto on the rear circle once per turn. At the end of this unit boost, if you have a new area in your zone, there it is. Put this unit into your soul. Choose one of your monster cards with monster Zeal in its card name in your order zone, either rest or okay, so yeah, I'm probably not misunderstanding their interaction then. So new era can only get recursion effects if you're using skills like with Gunrock and also Devane in order to facilitate the whole resting, because normally you can't rest them. They're going to be as stand. Oh, that is interesting. That is really interesting because again, I don't think Zeal himself facilitates that. So, that is a fascinating, you have submitted to me a really, really thought-provoking set of cards here, Viper Cobra. All right, I'm really impressed by how well you managed to keep Zeal really fresh and engaging, because at base, it's not that interesting of a gimmick. As a matter of fact, one could say that brand gate-wise, Welstra has already done a lot with this gimmick. So although it's having the classic Zeal ability of having card effects which require your opponent to be at lesser power, so it's kind of like that, and also Valios and Beasters and stuff like that, right? You've also expanded on it by using the Order Zone as a really interesting way of allocating resources. You get energy, you get calls, you can recur from drop to hand, but you have to expunge the other, so you set back at basically nothing after that. Well, and I say basically nothing because one can actually spare itself. That's interesting. That is kind of an interesting effect. I like these cards. So yeah, having seen the package as a whole, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. There are some balancing issues. I think it's a little bit like bullying on a grade 3 there. And also it can get a little confusing, and maybe it's a little needlessly complicated with how you operate in your order zone. So it is possibly trying a little too hard to make something a complex system, kind of a Rube Goldberg machine, if you know what I'm talking about. But having said that though, with just a tad bit more polish and playtesting, you could have a truly phenomenal set of Zeal cards in your hand. Very well done. You did Zeal proud. And that's going to be doing it for this episode. It looks like the preview here is, oh, I know these cards. Okay, so I actually have fought these cards many times on stream. So next time when we get back into it, we're going to be talking about some Nagos, a set of cards that I am all too familiar with. So we're going to have a fun time reading those. But that's going to do it for this episode. And if you did like this episode, again, definitely like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, the handy dandy bell that'll let you know the next time I upload, so you don't have to miss another one of these custom card reviews. But if you're interested in other Cardfight Vanguard content in the meantime, then look no further. We've got top 10s, discussions, fight nights, anime reactions, the whole shebang, so check them out. And with that said, take care and God bless.